Hey guys, welcome to the next season of American Signature Podcast. This first episode of the second season is with Jonny Carter of TGS Outdoors in the UK. We had actually filmed this and recorded it back in the fall. I was gone, come home, hunting season took off. After hunting season was going again, and just got back home, getting everything fired back off. So I thought we'd save that episode for this season, get it kicked off, and go from there. So hope you enjoy. Here it goes. So, hey guys, today welcome to American Signature Podcast. I'm fortunate enough to have Jonny Carter from Hampshire, UK. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. Though I'm not from Hampshire, I'm from Wiltshire, which is a better county, if we're going to get particular.
If you're going to get particular, okay. So we don't cross county lines, no parishes. You got to make sure everybody knows where they're from.
Yeah, well, it's about being, proud. And I'm proud of being from Wiltshire. I wouldn't be proud of being from Hampshire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a proper urban county.
Fill me in on that a little bit. So we have rivalries even in our own state. So I'm sure everything's different or similar at the same time.
It's very, very similar, mate. And there's no genuine reason to dislike being from Hampshire or living in Hampshire, apart from that I'm from Wiltshire. And inherently, it's a classier county with much more intelligent, much more handsome people.
Okay, sure. So you're adopted, what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that, mate. Yeah, something like that.
No, it's all good, mate. The joking aside, I appreciate you doing this, Jonny. We've been talking for probably a couple months now, trying to get our schedules lined up. You're 8 hours ahead of me, or rather, I'm 8 hours behind you, however you want to look at it. So I appreciate us getting this scheduled and you fitting it in your day to day. So give me a little bit. Kind of give me your bio. Tell me about yourself.
So, I'm Jonny Carter. I am the presenter and producer of TGS Outdoors YouTube channel, is where most people recognize me from. It started as a YouTube channel based around a gun shop, the gun shop, hence TGS. And we separated off about a year or so ago, properly, and sort of found our own feet. We found that actually the quality of our work, we worked really hard, me and Sasha, our videographer, to make the best content we possibly could, given the limitations of what we had, and limitations mostly just being working in England. And a lot of people like that. So a lot of people coming to us asking us, can you do this for us? So we set up a production company, TGS Productions, next to it. And yeah, like I said, that's now pretty much my full-time job. Beforehand, I was a gunsmith, gun sales, gun fitter. Before that, I was a gamekeeper, a professional hunter in Africa. So I have I've had a fun-filled life so far. So that kind of, I enjoy being creative, and I enjoy doing new stuff. And as you know, making videos, everyone is different. Certainly with the other jobs I've done, they get a bit boring, a bit stale fairly quick. It's cool. So my job is split 60-40, 40% is for our own content, 60% is for other people's content. All around hunting and guns for the most part. We've got a few clients who aren't in that realm, but yeah, we specialize in hunting and guns. So why not specialize in hunting and guns? Every time we do something different, it just goes wrong. So how old are you? I'm 31.
31. Okay. And so what got you into hunting to begin with? Did your parents or some family members get you started off when you're young, and then that just, you knew that was something you wanted to keep going into? Or
it's a very good question. My parents lived in the Falkland Islands before I was born. And when we were young, they used to play us the old Flickr slideshows on those projectors in your living room.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them was when my dad with a 2.2 shooting geese to feed to their pigs.
Oh,
and
wow.
That was like, I remember thinking that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen as a kid. This is obviously way before YouTube. So in terms of cool level, that was about the coolest thing we were allowed to see. And then growing up, sort of, you obviously have to decide on a career. My dad worked in agriculture at the time, so I kind of saw him. He was a dairyman. I very much saw that as something I didn't want to do. But there was a gamekeeper. Mate, you've got to be insane to wake up at 4 and then work until midnight every day.
Oh, that's got to be. I mean, your dad must have been a hardworking man, that's for sure.
He definitely was, but much like myself, he gets bored pretty quick and changes career occasionally because life is too short to do the same thing every day. I think for your entire life.
Yeah.
And he was working on a estate in Hampshire, actually, And there was a gamekeeper there. And I remember seeing the gamekeeper at about 13 thinking, that's a cool job. That's much better. They could just get to drive around, feed pheasants, shoot foxes, shoot deer. And obviously, it's a romantic view of it because it's a lot harder than just driving around, shooting, and having fun all day.
Yeah.
But that's at that point I decided that's the career I want to choose. You get to be in the countryside, and you still have to be up early, but only for a small portion of the year. And it looked like a really good lifestyle. And to be fair, it is a really good lifestyle. And so that's when I said to my dad, I said, what I want to do. And he goes, cool, you best learn how to shoot properly then. So he got me some lessons with a great instructor. And so I got into clay shooting at that point. Rifle shooting was never my bag. I was never very good at it. And it never really was something that we did a lot of. And the keeper that trained me didn't really shoot a lot of rifles. It was all shotguns. So I've very much learned into shotguns my entire life. And I mean, I did that for a career for a short period, like I said, but I moved on.
Yeah.
So 4 years of that. But the shotguns and guns stayed with me, obviously, ever since. That was much more of a passion than anything else, clearly.
And then, do what?
I think a lot of it is probably worth mentioning that rifles are a lot more restricted here than shotguns. Shotguns is a lot easier to get access to and shoot. Rifles are difficult.
Oh yeah. Which we struggle with part of our country sometimes on what they feel like our Second Amendment rights and what are not. But I grew up shooting pistols and rifles, and I didn't start shooting shotguns till I was older. So, and it's just because I wasn't in the sports that caused me to use shotguns myself until I got older. I didn't actually start hunting. I didn't start what we call waterfowl hunting. I guess y'all call wildfowl hunting, but I didn't start doing that until I was 18. So that was really my first time hunting with a shotgun. Other than I did some rabbit hunting, little bit with an uncle of mine, but that was really about it. But so you said I didn't know that you were a guide in Africa. That's pretty neat. One of my favorite movies.
It's one of those jobs that I wish I'd never left.
Really?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was thinking one of my top favorite movies is a movie called The Ghost in the Darkness.
Oh, that is an amazing film.
A lot of people don't know it. And so it's always a treat for me to show people the first time or tell them about it. And it's one of my dad took me when I was probably, I don't know, 6 years old to the movie theater. And I thought we was going to see some cartoon or whatever, but it was that movie, and it was awesome, man. And I watched it the other day. We was talking about it, so I dusted it off and watched it, and it's a cool story, based on the true story there. So it's yeah. Pretty
Well,
cool.
Interestingly, don't they say in the film is fairly close to the true story, fairly close. And I think in the film as well, there's a leaf speed. And I recently acquired a leaf speed based partially on that film because it's such a cool, proper iconic gun, proper iconic film.
Yeah, and that's
very interesting time in history as well.
Yeah, it was. I mean, industrial age, and everybody was in a race, and it's just cool. And I tell people the story. A lot of people didn't know the story was actually based on a true story. So I read about it, and I read a book about it a long time ago. So yeah. I kind of got off topic, but you brought up being in Africa. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's one of the things I'd quite like to go to that part of Africa and actually do, because they do tours of the area and things just to put it into real life context. Because that was mega. They had thousands of workers working on that railroad, didn't they? It was pretty mega.
So that's pretty neat. So you definitely well versed in the sport and well versed in what you do, that's for sure. So what got y'all into starting to do the documentaries that TGS Productions is doing now?
We wanted to make one. So grouse shooting in this country is a very contentious subject, an extremely contentious subject. It's generally done by very rich people for the most part. It's obviously it's very accessible if you live in the areas and know the right people. However, most people don't see that. Most people obviously just see the fact that very wealthy people come from all over the world and are willing to pay what a grouse, £200 a brace, £100 each to go and shoot. But you're shooting 100 brace, 200 birds, potentially more, maybe sometimes less, between 8 guns. So it's an expensive habit, £2,000 or £3,000 a day, maybe more each. I can understand why somebody wouldn't understand that, why somebody would be willing to pay that money. However, obviously, I hate to use the word liberals because I am a bit of a liberal, but people who do not understand and appreciate our world want to ban it, because in order to produce the amount of grouse that these people need, they need to manage the ground very intensely. They need to rotationally burn the heather to keep the heather healthy. And by healthy, I mean not old and rank, young, sweet. The grouse eat the small shoots and nest in the medium height stuff, and anything over about a foot high needs to be burnt. Well, it doesn't need to be burnt. It just serves very limited purpose. More importantly, it poses a real fire risk because it's a very oily plant, heather. So it's dry, it's oily, and there was a huge fire 3 years ago now, it wiped out everything. It burns down into the peaty soil. So yeah, I'm trying to think where I was. Sorry. So it's a hugely contentious subject. Not only that people are paying thousands of pounds to kill these animals, but also the management practices that are involved in burning the heather and killing nearly all of the legal predators get controlled down to a very low level. Obviously, that doesn't just benefit grouse. We should point out at this point that benefits all ground nesting birds, amphibians, newts, snakes, insects. It's an extremely diverse habitat. I remember the first time when we went to a grouse moor, it blew my mind. Like, it was insane. It's like wildlife you've never seen, that rich. Anyway, all of the organizations that were out there, all our shooting organizations, were doing nothing on social media in a modern way to promote promote grouse shooting. And I wanted to make a documentary on grouse shooting as somebody from the south of England who lives 250 miles from the nearest grouse moor. So I went to a couple of people to try and find funding. Eventually, somebody said yes very quickly. That was the National Gamekeepers Organization. We've been working with them ever since. They're a fantastic organization, really good guys. They support us, and we work together, and we have a great relationship. They get the need to create progressive documentaries. So we made our first documentary with them, and that was history. That was a real learning experience. As somebody who'd never made a documentary before, had made a lot of YouTube videos and other things, it was a real learning experience. I think you don't appreciate until you have done something like that how much effort goes into making these things as good as they are, how much stuff goes in the bin, how much planning needs to be done to make the edit, to make it something, or else. I think that first documentary, we kind of just went and asked people questions, and each of the interviews was about 2.5 hours long. And to try and cherry pick the juicy pieces to put into I think that first documentary was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Was impossible. It was so hard because you had to leave so much good stuff on the floor. But I mean, as a personal learning experience, that first film we made about grouse moors, it was a genuine learning experience for me. I had never really been to one properly. I didn't understand the nuances like the locals did. And yeah, after that, the NGO wanted more. We realized that it was both fun to make documentaries and they were some of the hardest hitting content we could create. So I won't say we specialize in it, but that's what we've been creating ever since, for the most part.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I remember seeing your first documentary. I remember actually not being that long ago. So yeah, I enjoyed watching.
Year and a half.
Yeah, it seemed like it in the span of y'all's videos that y'all have been doing, y'all's episodes, it seems to not be that long ago. So yeah, that's neat. And like I said, you're traveling around. Last time we was talking, filming more stuff. So that's definitely blessed that you get to go around and do things that keep you entertained as well.
Yeah, it's certainly a blessing, and you'll know as somebody in this sort of world that it is a real blessing to be able to be part of something or work in something that you're truly passionate about.
Yeah. So speaking of just kind of still in the topic, but a little different, just being seeing on your social media, I don't see you talk about a lot, but I've seen that you do a lot with dogs as well. at your home front at the house, or you have?
Yeah, we've got a couple. This is where I am utterly guilty. My dogs are the worst dogs you've ever met. So I should caveat this as well, like everything, is the two spaniels are my other halves. So that's why they're terrible and naughty and real bad. So I've got two Cocker Spaniels, or we have two Cocker Spaniels. One is called Odin and one is called Lily. They're nightmares. Like they are like all Cocker Spaniels. I don't see many of my American sort of friends and people I follow. Cocker Spaniels and Spaniels aren't really a huge thing over there.
They yes and no. So, a lot of people have them just as regular pets, spaniels in general. And then British Cockers, a lot of people are using them for waterfowling here. It's actually it's a growing trend. And for the longest time, I mean, labs are still king. Labrador retrievers are still king in the retriever world in the States.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want something different, and maybe they don't want a 50 to 70 pound lab. Maybe they want a spaniel that they can pull in and out of a boat easy, or
a little pocket rocket.
Just a little more, easier to get on a dog stand in the timber that we like to hunt. So I know a lot of people, that's all they hunt is spaniels. Just
interesting.
What I can tell, what's a little different from us, and the one wildfowling video that I seen you do, I could see where it might be an issue. Spaniels are good if it's a lot of swimming, as far as like they're not having to push through a lot of brush, a lot of sage, a lot of mud, like y'all's wildfowling I seen on the tide comes out. A lot of them are just not strong enough to do that for 5 hours, bird after bird after bird, pick up 50 to 60 birds at. So a lot of people I know that use them in the timber when it's 3 foot of water that they're going to be swimming in, getting stuff in a relatively close area, or, in a little bit of open water doing the kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It really is horses for courses. And I know you say that, it's exactly the same here. Is if you're out doing that sort of thing, you take a Labrador because it's big and strong. And Spaniels really work well for beating, for dragging through brush every day. But I mean, it's not so bad down here. The ground's relatively soft, but I've got friends up country and across country where, you've got proper hills. And they'll have teams of Spaniels, one team for the morning and one team for the afternoon.
Wearing them out.
I suppose they're not, you never really think about it. Yeah, they're just not built to smash through cover all day, all night without inherently needing to have a Mars bar put in their mouth to wake them back up at some point.
Yeah. And they're all different breeds, and all the ones that I've seen, and my friends that train them as well. I mean, they seem to be a little more stubborn, or just a little different to train, than the labs, or
they
seem
don't
like
really have a brain. I think that's a lot of the problem.
Yeah, the Labrador will meet you halfway, right? And if you can halfway do anything, at least it seems like a Labrador will at least give you the benefit of the doubt. You can probably trick it into thinking that you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I've seen, probably you'll agree, and maybe not, I've seen a lot of Labradors that I really respect. I think I've seen one Spaniel that I think is half decent.
Yeah, I think there's probably one or two that I've ever seen that I'd say I'd be willing to hunt over that dog.
Yeah, and I've got a Basset Hound as well, but that doesn't really count.
Oh, ain't nothing wrong with hounds. I grew up with like I said, with rabbit hunting. My uncle, who's also my neighbor, he does beagles. So he runs rabbit dogs, he runs beagles, and he runs them in tests, and he runs them for hunting rabbits and Turner rabbits and stuff. So I mean, I like having something with a purpose. So, and then if you need a lab, I got some puppies on the ground right now. We'll get one shipped over to you.
But I do aspire to have more dogs, but my other half doesn't like labs. She likes small dogs. And apparently, until my Basset Hound Tank dies, I'm not allowed another dog. He is a very, as you know, hounds, they smell, and they're stubborn, and they're arrogant. And there's not a lot of good to say about them.
Yeah,
but they are pretty. They're very pretty.
they're pretty, and I guess they're dogs. So any day with a dog's better than a day without a dog.
That is true, and I do pretend that Tank is a deer dog, and I know certainly tracking dogs for deer is something that a few guys over there are doing now, but it's become a really big thing over here in the last 10 years.
Yeah, the biggest thing for here on the tracking deer, and I had to use one a couple years ago. We got a lot of people just in the area on Facebook that they're Facebook groups, depending on what county you're in or part of the state, that have deer tracking dogs. So that if you shoot a deer and you can't find it, you just go on that Facebook group and say, "Hey, I got a deer down in this area," and they're just wanting a reason to come run their dog. So they're more than willing to come out there and just help you because it gives them a reason to use their dog, But a lot of them are.
We have a similar association over here, the deer. I can't remember, deer tracking recovery or something.
Yeah,
you can call, but it's become fashionable to not rely on them. The really fashionable thing is to have your rifle and a scope and a dog, and just be self-contained.
Oh, you're self-contained. Well, but a lot of our guys here, they'll just get puppies or dogs from the pound. They don't breed for them or whatever. They'll go get a dog from the pound and turn it into a tracking dog. So I've seen Yorkies. I've seen all kinds of little tracking dogs. It's pretty fun to see what'll show up.
Dogs are inherently more intelligent than we give them credit for. They'll always find the dead, delicious deer if they can.
Yeah.
That's what they've been doing they've been doing for 1,000 years, right? Sorry.
Right. Again. So that's fine. So going in, I know you said you got some questions too, so this might lead into some of it. Kind of, what do you think are the big differences between like English and American shooting?
Oh, they are vast. They really are vast. You guys are lucky in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, we probably have a slightly richer tradition, but I think that could be the only positive. Accessibility is an interesting one. You guys, it's very accessible, seemingly, in every state, or every person I spoke to for every state. Most states, hunting is extremely accessible, as is gun ownership for the most part. Your hunting seasons is an interesting one. Is we're luckier with hunting seasons. Is our seasons are extremely long. So you can hunt deer 365 days of the year. We've got 6 species, and most of them, where they are in season, different sexes for the most part all year round. So you can always go deer shooting, which is nice. Stalking.
Yeah.
We are probably less limited in a lot of ways, but access is harder. It's probably the best way of putting it. Certainly, that's what I see as differences. I don't know if you would agree with that from your point of view over there.
So I've never got to come over to the UK to hunt. So maybe someday. But I am.
You're most welcome when you're allowed, mate. You're most welcome when
I'm allowed. Yeah. So that's another thing. We talked about that. I thought that'd be neat one time I'd love to have you over here, spend some time hunting. Maybe a long week. Put you on a couple different things, but I'd love to, after seeing like your beater day video and stuff like that. I'd love to go over there and tweed up with all my tweed and get into my roots of shooting stuff in wool and tweed.
Mate, do not knock wool and tweed. So that's probably one of the biggest things. Is obviously our attire is very different. Very different. We obviously lean into the traditional wear, and I will stand up that I would rather wear natural fibers and materials than a plastic jacket.
Yeah, it's just different. But like our deer season's 4 months. Our waterfowl season goes by breed, so it goes by migration. So early season teal, because they migrate early. Early season goose, kicks off about the beginning of September. Same time dove season starts for us. Waterfowl season's always right there around Thanksgiving. Ducks, coots, mergansers type deal. The rest, and then all the geese are open up, and then it always ends at the end of January, and then February we start snow goose season. And when the snow goose season happens, we don't have limits because they destroy a a lot of the farmland, the agricultural land, stuff like that. So there's a window of time for snow geese where you can put extended tubes on your shotguns and get as many as you can load up in the back of your truck. So that is a big difference. For us, depending on what part of the country you're in, specifically, I live in the southeast part of the country in Alabama, so about 6 hours north of the Gulf Coast. We are eat up with deer. You can't drive a car around a corner without hitting one. But wow. we still have a season for it. Waterfowl, where I'm not in a direct migration line for waterfowl. I shoot a lot of waterfowl here. That's where I grew up waterfowl hunting, even on public land here. But I run another club in Arkansas, which for me is about a 5-hour drive. So I run one in Alabama and I run one in Arkansas, just a private clubs for friends. But so during the waterfowl season, which is only those 60 days, I spend a lot of my time on the road between where I live and then my other club, where I'll be where I live and then I'll drive my 5 hours for a long weekend or a week and then come back. But I'll, depending on the weather, if it's froze out or there's no birds because the migration's shifted, then I won't bother with going. But it's really in the main flyway there. So that part's different. I will say we did get away from maybe our English traditions for a long time. Everything camoed up and stuff like that. Now, into my defense, when I'm waterfowl hunting, I'm usually chest deep in water and mud and stuff like that in the rain. It's nasty.
Yeah, you want to be in a really big, delicious, protective set of waders and a huge jacket. Right.
Yeah, I like waders and jackets, and I like gear. I keep having to build extra closets because I keep getting so much shooting apparel and shooting gear and clothing and whatnot. But I have
part of the fun. That is definitely part of the fun.
Yeah, and then usually if I haven't worn something in a while, I pass it on to somebody else. But I definitely have gotten more into hunting and not. I only got to hunt a few days this last year due to my military job, so it was kind of a weird season for me. But the days I did hunt, most time I was wearing either an old waxed jacket that I had that I was waterfowl hunting in, or some sweaters, some upland sweaters, some upland vests. As long as it wasn't raining and it wasn't just pouring down, then very rarely did I wear some kind of Gore-Tex jacket. I tried different stuff and it worked out just fine.
Did COVID affect your hunting season over there at all? Well, not really.
No, not really. For me, like I said, I'm not. For anybody that might be listening on your end, I am in the military here in America. And so this last year, big thing right now is our what they call the border crisis. Everybody's seeing on the news, and so I've been on the border for the last year. I got moved over, so that's what I've been doing. So I went home to see my family during hunting season, and I got to hunt a little bit. But COVID really hadn't affected the hunting at all.
That's interesting. So I mean, obviously, we went through 3 lockdowns and various stages. The first one, we weren't even allowed to go stalking, deer shooting, deer hunting, because of the restrictions with travel, unless you were a professional. That was tough.
Yeah.
A lot of very lucky deer were walking around. Hopefully, I've actually seen there's quite a few bigger bucks kicking around this year. I'm going to blame last year them not getting shot. And then during the season in November, we had a lockdown. That meant that we couldn't have organized driven hunts, which really ruined and sort of really closed down a few businesses. Obviously, shooting over here is viewed a lot more as a business, I think. I mean, maybe that's a misconception. There's a lot more money tied up in private industry around shooting, actually the shooting of animals as opposed to the sales of bits to go with it.
Yeah.
And then the same happened in January. So there was a lot of people who didn't get out. There's a lot of shoots that didn't even put any birds down to shoot. And it was a sad season.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time for sure. But when we've had our lockdowns, they knew, and it depends on where you live. You can live in a rural area or not, and depending on what kind of political area you live in, but for just about anywhere where there's hunting in the States, the people who are there won't stand for being told they can't do something. So you can say, don't cross that line, and they'll start playing hopscotch on it. So, you know, people are going to do what they want to do. And so, I mean,
yeah, some people tried over here. There was a time that Wales was locked down and we weren't, and people were trying to sneak into Wales to go shooting. And a few people got caught doing that, which was pretty bad. Obviously, the issue over here, and I don't know, again, is they can take our guns away.
Yeah.
For anything. So if somebody says, or the government says, you can't go shooting, you don't go shooting.
Really?
And a few people who tried lost their licenses, got fines, and actually, yeah, that's about the worst thing that can happen to a shooting man, obviously, is not being able to shoot. And it's not like over there, we can't use bows. We can't really use anything apart from shotguns and rifles. And air gun, you can use an air rifle, but what adult actively, once you've had the taste of shotgun shooting or a taste of deer stalking, will go, I am satisfied shooting rabbits with an air gun.
Yeah, it's different culture, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and I'd say one thing I'm very jealous of you guys is the ability to bow hunt and to not have the stress of somebody taking your guns away for doing the slightest misdemeanor.
Well, I mean, like I said, no place is perfect, and I mean, like we are very fortunate over here with our hunting and stuff like that. But like I said, when I do watch your videos, I mean, I really think we've lost a step with some of the traditional gun clubs here. Like when y'all do y'all's beater days, stuff like that. I mean, to me, I kind of like that scenario. And there's some places here that do that just to do it because people enjoy it. But not many.
I've seen it, but I think again, looking at I think there's two places over there that do it sort of the English style, and there's a lot of people that sell English style driven hunts, but it's actually just birds released out of boxes whilst you stand in a valley. Yeah, which for me it probably doesn't fall into my brackets of fair chase that I'm happy with.
It's not as sporting, that's for sure. And part of it is like I'll give you an example. We used to have a lot of quail in the area, a lot of quail. And now we don't have hardly any quail. And that's because of our fire ant population got real big and destroyed a lot of the coveys. I mean, seriously. And so, I mean, it's crazy. Huh?
How big are these ants?
Oh, no, they're not big, but the density of they were spread out everywhere. And now, people get a quail covey started. And it's like, we're going to stay out of this area for as long as we can. No dove shooting, no chucker, no pheasant. We're gonna let them try to build up. Maybe in a couple of years we'll we'll try to shoot some. But it's so we lose a lot of habitat. And so what a lot of gamekeepers or farmers will do, they will breed and buy. And you can do like on pheasant shoots, you can do place pheasants where they'll release pheasants in a couple of acres of a property. And I've done those hunts before. It's actually really fun to go do that as like a cleanup day where they've done a couple of those released hunts and they know that they've only got about half the pheasants that were out there. So at about day 3, you can go out there and shoot for free. And they've done kind of turned a little wilder and they'll fly a lot more and stuff like that.
And suddenly the sport and the chase is fair.
Yeah. So the sport and chase is fair. So I enjoy it. That's why I like, duck hunting. I'm shooting ducks that have, even in Alabama, that have come all the way from the Saskatchewan or the Prairie Pothole region in Canada. So, I mean, when they get to me, I'm at the very end. So they've done seen all the tricks. They know all the stuff. So you got to be on your A game. That's for sure.
Yeah, I bet there's an element. There's got to be a small element of you goes, I'm sorry. You've made it this far, boys, but you've not made it far enough.
That's right. That's right. And where have you ever hunted here in the States?
The pheasants. Mate, I've never been. We were planning to come out last year and hunt a little bit and just go and see some things, shoot some clays, experience American hunting firsthand. It's obviously a lot easier to get a flavor of America because you guys are way ahead in your social media world with hunting, and it's way more accepted. So you guys can show seemingly a much more honest picture of what it's actually like.
Yeah.
Over here, it's a lot harder to be honest and fully open at the moment.
And some of that's changing.
So
for us. A lot of our stuff is, YouTube, Google, stuff like that is all run by people who don't really care for it. So a lot of our channel, just in the last week, almost every hunting channel has been demonetized on YouTube. And but you can still post it. So like, I don't monetize my stuff because I don't want any limits on what I do. But a lot of these guys are really feeling the pain now because they use a lot of their social media money that they have come in to fund hunting and to further film crews, videographers, editing, stuff like you're talking about how you're doing. And that's the money that they put back into it.
Gear costs money, mate.
Yeah, gear, and people, you need a camera guy. So it's trickling. I foresee there being another platform over here in the States come available here soon that'll just, that won't be as limited and that kind of stuff. But even then, we're still pretty blessed with that stuff. So, but
yeah, you're seemingly a little further ahead than we are on that note. I think. But again, it's obviously everything's rosy from the outside.
That's right. Well, I'll take a pause for a second. You said you had a couple questions. So, and there was anything?
I mean, this is probably a little bit too personal, but it's an interesting one for us. Like, we've had to fight not tooth and nail, but fairly tooth and nail to gain any sort of sponsorship for our channel. And we are the third biggest in the UK in our sector, probably the biggest just purely gun channel in the UK. And we find that interesting because we speak to our American counterparts, and your companies seem to appreciate you a little bit more. Is that an illusion, or is that me? Is that actually right? Do you guys actually get support from your brands? And listening to your podcast, brands are willing to look after the promotional staff and they seem to understand the value of having.
Yes, and there's different. It's a tier level, if that makes sense. The best way, if I can explain it, and I get asked the question all the time. Hey, how can I be on a professional or promotional staff? Because there is a difference. How can I do? How can I do this? I've been asked if I've had a staff. People wanted to be promoted. I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. But it is different. So like, for my podcast, I currently don't have any sponsors on it, but it's by choice because I want to be able to interview a broad range of people, a broad range of brands, a broad range of companies. And I feel like if I had a sponsor in around, I may have one in the future, but just starting off, if I had a sponsor that was in this lane, then if I interviewed anybody in that lane, I had to stay within their brand. Where right now,
you need to go into those relationships with equal power and equal stakes, right?
Yeah.
Or else you end up just being a slave.
Yeah. And our outdoor industry, like you brought it up yourself about social media. I mean, the outdoor channel that we have, just to take your episodes and put it on the outdoor channel is $100,000 American dollars, roundabout.
Okay.
So that's not including you filming, you editing, the hunts. You still got all your expenses.
So you have to pay for them to be on that channel.
Yeah. So then I've got a season of 16 episodes for 2021, and you go to the outdoor channel and they say, okay, well, $130,000 American dollars, and you can have it on our channel. So
you need your sponsors to pay that bill.
You need the sponsors to pay that bill. And that's what, even if you see most people on our outdoor TVs, most of them, that's not their full-time job. They work a regular job. They do regular stuff. And then this is something that they do on the side, just in the industry. So what really started happening is social media kicked off. Anybody with an Android or Apple phone can go out there, and not be the same maybe quality, but you're getting more realism. You're getting more before the hunt, after the hunt. It wasn't a good hunt, but whatever. And, and people like seeing the realism of, hey, we had to sit in the marsh all day today, and we got rained on and snake bit.
And we got nothing.
And we got nothing, all we killed was time, So
yeah, and you just sat through half an hour of this episode and you didn't see a kill shot. Well done, guys.
Right. But that's real life, and the social media that started going along with that, and brands. We used to have what I call the old school professional staff for us, which was just like an elite group of guys, and everybody. They were on salary with companies, and it was just it was a big deal. And social media, really anybody can do it. And we went, the pendulum swings. So it went where brands were just giving sponsorships out to everybody they could to get as much on there. And it kind of diminished it a little bit, and it was different levels, right? So it may not be, hey, we'll give you 10,000 American dollars. It may be, hey, we'll give you all your hunting clothing for the season.
Have a slab of shells.
And then anybody will give you a discount promo code that if anybody wants anything, any of your viewers will give them 10% off, 20% off, 30% off.
There's some interesting statistics to do with that actually I think only it's like 35% of people who buy because of you will use your code.
Yeah, and then when I talk to people, none of my sponsors do I ever worry about a code with, because to me it don't really show true viewership or whatever, so I don't worry about them. But so then you had some people who hey, I want to do some filming. I can provide some hunting. I can provide the story, but I need some coverage on videographer. I need some coverage on an editor. That. So then a lot of brands will give you some of the products and then give you some money on top of that to have a better quality. So to have
if their brand's associated with it, at least then they're getting someone turn up with an A7 S3 and a couple of drones. And producing content that is fitting of their brand. Correct.
And so, but then the pendulum kind of swung, because then you met people, and I could walk into a room of 100 people I never knew, and 2/3 of them all be sponsored by the same company, trying to tell everybody like, well, they've already got y'all, so, type deal. So the companies probably about 3 or 4 years ago, they really kind of seen that it's time to kind of swing back now. So they started being a lot more.
An elite selection of people.
Yeah. So kind of
actually promote their brand correctly.
Yeah. And so, like I was saying, now there's kind of tiers, right? So there might be just kind of a field staff influencer. Hey, some of that may even be, they may not even give you free stuff. They might just give you a half off discount. We'll give you half off. Maybe you're a hunting
that's
guy.
enough. For a lot of people.
Yeah, man. Some guys, and that's good, and that's good for their cell phone pictures and their social media and stuff like that. And then you get to people who, like some of my sponsors, I have a contract with them, and I have to post so much on this account. So I have to have so many posts a month for these sponsors, and they track me through a third-party website. Tracks how many likes I get, how many comments I get, how many shares I get. And at the end of the year, they look at that big picture and they say, yes, this met, our money was well spent, or it was not, So that's stuff, that's stuff you got to look at. And you still have some of those elite guys who were elite back 20 years ago that still have those relationships, and they can make a phone call and say, hey, I really need a new UTV for the season. Can you get me one? And, like Santa Claus in November, they'll show up with, the latest and greatest. And, and some guys have earned that stature. That's for sure.
If they're selling enough product, and I think that's always the hard thing for brands to quantify, is actual sales, because anybody could promote it, but if they're not converting, it's a very difficult thing to do. And I don't envy brands having to decide who is actually selling their product and who is just.
Yeah. And it is sales, and it's also part of its marketing, right? Another horse trainer told me one time, when he was talking about you can only do so much yourself, right? So if you really want to make a living, you got to produce yourself as much. You got to make as many ewes as you can, and then kind of draw them by either training other people to train, or stuff like that, and opening a business that way. So in these big companies, now their marketing budget has just exploded. but they can only film so many hunts a year and film so many experiences a year. So if I take part of that marketing budget and sprinkle it along a lot of people, then now they get a lot more of their exposure for their same amount of money. And so now instead of just the people for the brand who may be in marketing but may have nothing to do with hunting or fishing or outdoor, or they're just a marketing person and they're trying to set up photo shoots and trying to set up stuff, where if they will take their budget, give half of it to other people or spend half of it on other people in social media world, they get a lot more visibility in the market.
It's something that we find again with a lot of British run brands is that marketing is not on the top of their list because it was done the same way for quite so long, and that actually the concept of a campaign is not lost on them. My brother runs a marketing company, so
nice.
He sort of, well, I've listened to a lot of what he's said over the last few years, and you got to take on board or take these things on board. And I remember him saying that most people just think that they can put out a couple of things and their lives will change, and they don't understand that it's like a 10-year plan and a strategy, and you have to have your direct conversions, and you have to have your mid layers, and then, like you say, you need to take some of your budget and just sprinkle it about so that people who perhaps you'll never buy your product at least understand the name. But
yeah. So
it's an interesting
good answer. So hopefully I gave you a good answer on that one.
No, you did, mate.
Best I can.
What guns do you use?
They're popular. So I mean, for shotgun shooting, I got a Beretta A400 Explorer 28 gauge that I shoot geese and duck with at 40 yards. And
yeah, you're lucky. I think that's the best thing about. One of the good things you have is you're not restricted to CIP.
Yeah.
So you guys can actually have steel cartridges that kill exceptionally.
Yes, we shoot steel, and that is what is mandated. But with sub gauges, and even now, I've gotten where I shoot bismuth mainly, or even tungsten, like a tungsten blend. Mm-hmm. And with those sub gauges or small bores, it just seems like I can shoot speckle belly geese at 40 yards with a 28 gauge loaded bismuth and just drop it where it is, not have to go chase a crippled bird.
We have I don't know, probably an issue in our country. Maybe, I don't know if it's an issue or not. And it's a mixture of things. The first thing is people like the cheapest ammunition possible. People are willing to pay good money to shoot pheasants, thousands of pounds of tweed, and then they want to buy the cheapest ammunition they can get their hands on. It's a strange thing because it's the cheapest part of hunting really is the bang.
Yeah.
When you boil it down. The next thing is we have an obsession with shooting high birds.
Yeah. And we get the same thing.
The higher and further the better. In fact, and it's boiled over this last probably 6 or 7 years, and a lot of that perhaps is to do with some YouTube and a few other bits and a few people and fashion, obviously, is that one can polish one's ego more if one can regularly go and shoot the highest birds possible.
Yeah.
I personally feel like there's a welfare question that comes into play, certainly, at a certain distance. And we could all agree on that, regardless of where that distance and where that line falls for you. It's no different to shooting deer with a rifle. I'm happy to 200 yards. After that, I won't shoot it. I know friends who can shoot further and willing to. I know people who are only willing to shoot at 50 yards. The third issue is that we are probably going to not perhaps get a general ban. Well, we are probably going to get a general ban on all lead ammunition, but it's going to happen next year. It's in stone at this point that we will not be able to sell any game shot with lead.
Really?
And that's a big difference between our countries. We can sell game. And as such, that really pulls into questions. We need to find an alternative that people are happy shooting birds with made of steel that isn't also, we've got a big cultural thing against plastic wads. So a couple of years ago, there was a huge announcement, a couple of years ago now, a year and a half ago, saying that over the 5 years, we would be phasing out lead shot. And then subsequently, a few things have changed with the EU and a few other things that has been brought forward, mostly because none of the supermarkets are going to buy anything shot with lead because lead is a known, there's no safe level of it. And how are you supposed to sell something to somebody when that's the case?
Yeah.
So we're in a bit of a state at the moment of trying to find a solution for a non-plastic, biodegradable wad that shoots steel whilst being under CIP. And that's an issue. That is a big issue. Everybody I ever speak to in America just says, just shoot tungsten or bismuth. But the thought, stupidly, of paying £1 a pop or £2 a pop to shoot a cartridge, or maybe £3 for tungsten, puts people off massively. Which is great irony, because they're willing to pay £1,000 to go and shoot some pheasants. They don't.
And that's the way. And I don't know if you listen. One of my podcasts I did with a guy that is part of a shell company that does bismuth shells called Boss Ammo. And
yeah, listen to that.
And he's real big at. I mean, Lee is like the photographer of photographers for waterfowl hunting in the States. He is the guy. And so he does big this stuff. We talked about on that as well. But for me, I've shot, and I mean, I still shot for a very long time. And but I can't tell you how many times that I've still shot, and shot the same bird 3 times, and feathers fly, and then the bird keep going the opposite direction. So
yeah, no, I think that's the problem with steel, is that it doesn't kill the same.
Yeah,
tungsten is amazing. I would shoot tungsten for the rest of my life if I could.
Yeah, if I could afford it, I would too. But
yeah,
I can at least base off that on the bismuth or a tungsten blend. I'm most likely only going to pull the trigger once per bird, as opposed to 2 or 3 times. So in my mind, I rationalize it as it's gonna equal out. So
I think you have to boil it down a lot. Certainly for me, when it comes to those non-toxics, is I don't shoot that many ducks or geese. So for me, it's a bit of a treat. And if I was down the pub and someone said it's your round, I'd probably pay £25 or £30 for a round of beers for my friends. I'll happily pay that for ammunition for a morning out. And I know that's about three shots with tungsten, but that's fine.
Yeah. If you had to give me, it definitely do the job. And we got a lot of companies that are making stuff in house here, and they're doing their own blends and doing their own patterning and doing their own fiber wads. You know, we got companies that are going back to fiber wads because just with the technology, they can crimp it and keep the pressure where it needs to be to still have a 1,250 foot per second shot with a fiber wad, which does well. So,
no, I'm afraid I am run out of time, but I'll end by saying you are obviously most welcome to come and join me at any time over here, and we'll find something to go and shoot. Is that pigeons, a pheasant, a deer, or fish? You can always fish. Fishing's always there.
Well, I appreciate the time, Johnny. I'm sure we'll talk on social media again. And the same thing, man. I'd love to have you over here in the States for a week or so during kind of our prime time, and maybe take you to some different locations and kind of let you experience a few different things.
Mate, it would be a really pleasure to experience it, as it would to see you in Tweed one day.
Hey, I'll do it, man. I'll do it. Well, I appreciate your time, Johnny. It's been good on you, mate. Sit here with me on the phone, and man, we'll talk to you next time.
Cheers, man. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.